in addition to what I was doing, me and another guy owned a small computer business. So back in the days of DOS, and Windows was brand new, and there was this little thing called the internet that was kind of new. So anyway, we did a lot of stuff, selling computers and a lot of business for businesses mostly, not for personal use, but also setting up local area networks so people could, hook computers together so they could share work, right? Which was very novel. So everybody could share a printer rather than having a printer for everyone, for a little office.
Okay.
And then the internet came about, and at that time, and I had taken a bunch of classes on how to do that and how to code web pages. So I was building web pages. And so I actually, Oliver said, "Hey, can you build us a web page?" So I did. I built the very first web page for the Falcons, and it had this stupid long web address because they wouldn't spring for a domain, because it cost money and they didn't have any money.
I remember that website. I remember like you used to be able to put like a comment like to the player. I remember that
Yeah,
that was like a silly
yeah, we
feature of that
had
website.
like player of the month and all kinds of different things.
Yeah, it was silly stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it was very silly, very silly. And
Yeah.
I just did it in my spare time. So, and it eventually, the owner, Bruce, his last name escapes me, but he was getting a lot of pressure from some of the other teams because he owned 3 of the teams, and he was getting pressure to liquidate some of, there should be more than, he should not have three of the, I think there was only like 6 or 8 teams in the league, and he had a good chunk of them. And there was, so he was getting some pressure, and, none of them were making money. He was bleeding money. Couldn't, he was, losing, they were losing sponsors, and it was just really a difficult time.
Right.
So he was looking to market them. And one of the things our little group decided to do was we would pool our resources and see if we could do that, but we needed a big money sponsor. And so we actually, and it was right through Ray Linker. He was acquainted with Bobby Brett, who is George Brett of the Kansas City Royals.
Okay.
It's his little brother. And Bobby owned a team up in Spokane. It was a WH, I don't remember what league it was in, but it was a triple A youth league.
Okay.
Up in Spokane. It was the Spokane Chiefs.
Okay.
And so we actually, him and me and one other guy flew up there and spent about 4 days up there meeting with Bobby Brett, going to some of his games at his arena. A beautiful facility, great ice, and very well promoted, and big part of the community. And we actually put together, a good amount of money because we were going to buy the team. We formed a corporation, and we went through all that. We had hired a tax guy and a tax attorney and went through all that. I met with Al Geller was the promoter, and he owned the space where the Falcons office was, and so he was their landlord.
Okay.
And I had met Al Geller years ago. And Al Geller is one of the reasons that Fresno was on the a great place for rock and roll concerts in the 70s, because he was a huge promoter and he got a lot of big acts here.
Yeah, I've heard good things about him. Things.
He was a super nice guy. He had a house actually not too far from where I live, over in the North Tower. Beautiful house. And anyway, and we met with, we had all this stuff lined up, and we actually had a bigger cash offer, I think, and Bud Long wanted the team also. Being that I was pretty good friends with John Oliver, and I was in the office probably 2 or 3 times a week, talking business with him.
Uh-huh.
I had an idea of the financial status of the team, and how upside down they were, and how much they owed a lot of their vendors. And so one of our contingencies was, and I don't remember the dollar amounts now, but we were going to pay. We had a pretty good. It was a league franchise fee, and then the cash for the team. But we were not going to assume any debt. That was no debt. We were going to come out debt free. And the owner said, "Nope, can't handle that." And so Bud actually he bid way less than us, but he agreed to take on the debt. as I recall. I could be mistaken, but so he got the team. He actually they went with him, and so he had a lot of vendors that were chomping at the bit to get paid. So I know it was a difficult thing for him to do. So, and he hired another guy who was another local promoter. He did stuff with the fair. I don't remember his name. He's since passed away. Who was also involved and trying to promote the team and things like that. And they just had a lot of one setback after another, and it
Can I ask you
didn't.
this question about Bud Long?
Yeah,
Do you think he wanted to take on the debt because he was a developer, correct?
I believe so. I think he owned Club One at the time too.
Do you think he wanted the status among his friend group, I own the Falcons, more than he cared about the operations?
We were all doing that, it's like every man's dream, right, to own a sports team. So I mean, that probably may have played into it. I don't know. I mean, he was a businessman, so he had to have been looking at, he
He
just
was
was.
the person, I remember his ownership group put the fighting in the Falcon name.
Yeah,
That
that's
was
right.
his logo, the Fighting Falcons.
And I remember I think the first year they did a lot of promotion. I mean, it looked encouraging. It's like, well, hey, dude, they're bringing crowds in. They're
I
getting
think they
more
really
TV.
started pushing the Pelco Nights, I think, or was that previous to that?
I think that was in the Bud Long era. So
I think because they really got in with the McDonald guy with the Pelco
yeah.
Night. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. I
What?
mean, that was some good times. I mean, when Oliver was the general manager and Guy Gadowski was the coach.
Yeah, he was a good coach. He
Oh,
was a
he's
good
great.
coach.
He's coaching up a Penn State, I think. So that was fun. There was a lot of promotions they had, if you remember that.
I remember that. Oh, the spin raft, yeah.
Yeah,
The Viking, yeah.
the Viking. Yeah. So I was actually his scholarship. So for the time he was going to Fresno City College, I covered his tuition and books. So
Wow, that was nice. So maybe for a couple minutes, I have you for a couple more minutes. What would you, if you could just wave a magic wand and say, all my wishes for Fresno hockey community, pro hockey in the future, monsters, hockey in general in the valley, you could wave a magic wand. Money was no object. What would you think that hockey needs to go forward in the valley or Fresno?
first of all, we need better ice. Because the ice is really sad. We travel a lot with Ethan and
Okay.
go to different rinks. And I mean, like the Sharks ice up in San Jose is amazing, but you know, well, there's a lot of communities that, I mean, Bakersfield's got a phenomenal facility for ice now. For their team, we need to have a minor league team here, just like with the Grizzlies, because this is a huge market. Hockey has been here since the 1940s. This was one of the first cities west of the Mississippi River to actually have ice hockey, before the St. Louis Blues, right? They had the Fresno Aces,
Yeah.
and I mean, it was kind of a beer league and so forth. But hockey,
Fresno Ice Arena. Yeah. Yeah.
they've been playing hockey here for a long time. And Selland Arena, say what you will about it, it was purpose built for hockey, and it's got some of the best sight lines. And I've
Oh,
seen
yeah.
been to hockey games a lot of different places, and it's got the best sight lines of it'll stand up with any of them. I know when the Falcons moved to Save Mart Center, it was horrible. That
Yeah.
was just awful watching hockey there. It was
Yeah.
uncomfortable. The sight lines were bad, and it was like, oh man, bring back Selland Arena.
I agree with you. Hockey, it's a feeling you can't really replicate.
Yeah. And part of that was back in the old age, because I mean, like I said, with the box wire around the
Yeah.
boards, and they just had pallets around the cement because so because it was slippery, right? Because everything leaked and there was ice everywhere. And
City did do some, improvements for the Falcons before they folded, which was nice. And because they made them come back downtown, and the Monsters kind of benefited from that for a little bit from the Falcons, commitment. And then they had a plan to build like this downtown complex that kind of fell through like 2007, 8 to build kind of like a practice facility, or I know there was like renderings provided. There was like there's a presentation, but yeah, I'm right there with you. I do believe that there should be pro hockey in this town. There's definitely appetite for it, and yeah, we just gotta keep advocating for it, and hopefully, it'll come to fruition one day. I think with the fact that Lake Tahoe is in town, and kind of excitement with like the Kraken, Utah, there's definitely some opportunity to have some feeder teams eventually. So we'll
No,
see
I mean,
what,
Stockfield's.
yeah, because the
Oh,
sky,
okay. That was actually a decent facility there. So,
yeah, this well they wanted they the Flames wanted to build a better practice facility, and the city said no, so they said, okay, we're gonna move our team back to, and then Winnipeg brought their team back, made the Manitoba Moose again into the AHL, so they kind of have like a couple teams up there. I've heard behind the scenes chatter that there was talks to bring back a team, but it didn't go forward. There's been conversations, but I just can't say exactly what it is because
yeah.
they keep
Well,
that.
somebody needs to, somebody needs to really put up some cash to do that too, because
Yeah, there was interest from. I'll just say there was interest from NHL teams to put a minor league team in this town 4 or 5 years ago back. You kind of just think what you want about it. There has been interest from NHL teams. I know that for a fact, but I can't say exactly who.
yep.
Yeah,
Well, and for a short time, the Falcons were a minor league team actually, and every once in a while, somebody would come down from the Sharks,
yeah,
to rehab from injury, and that was
yeah,
always fun. So,
yeah. They had the affiliation with the Sharks, the affiliation with the Blackhawks for a minute.
oh,
Yeah,
that's right. Was the Hawks? Yeah, that's right. I
yeah,
forgot. Yeah.
yeah. There's been some affiliations that there's some of the players that were here were sent here from those teams, because they had that collective bargaining agreement with the NHL. You could be sent down to the ECHL, AHL. Even if you get drafted, you can be sent down to you know the Coastal League. But anything else you want to say, Scott, that I didn't have a chance to ask you?
No, not really. It's good to remember some of this stuff. It happened a long time ago. So,
Yeah,
especially the '60s and '70s.
take some of your time, and
Yeah.
look forward to seeing you at the rink.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, we'll see you.